everybody. This is Diane. Hello and welcome to Biters.
And this is Marnell, and welcome to another episode of Diane liked the book better, and I liked the original movie better.
And I would say yes and yes, although I'm still liking the reboot of... I call it the reboot of the series, not because I know the series that you watched, but because that's how I identify it in my brain. I'm still liking the series.
Like I said, I'm liking it better, but as we discussed before we started podcasting, we really need to stop watching ahead.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, because we are on episode 3, Blank Pages.
And my brain is totally mucked up in terms of what happened when and where, and was it in the book, and did I read it? Did I envision it in my brain? Did I watch ahead and now I'm messed up because I'm trying to talk about episode 3? So was it Blank Page or Blank Pages? I think it was Blank Page.
Blank Page.
Yeah. Okay, so give me your rating.
So, I don't know. I keep saying that my ratings are going to improve.
But they don't.
It did, but I feel like I liked this episode better the first time I watched it, and so it didn't... It sort of lost some stuff upon rewatch, and I don't know if that's because I have watched ahead and I do like the next 2 episodes even better than I like this one. So I gave this one a 3.2 vet assisted births.
Okay, I really don't think your numbers are going up.
The last one was a 3.
Yeah, really?
The first
thought
one
it
was a 2.5.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, if you say so.
I promise, like, my numbers will get better.
Well, I still then definitely like it better than you do. I gave it 4 evil board games out of 5. And I am just going to tell you, I don't know why Facebook thinks I need to see this. And maybe it's because I share all of those memes since we watched Hail Satan about satanic stuff. But every few days, I get an ad for this company that is making new Ouija boards. And I'm here to tell you, I'm never going to have one of those things in my house. I won't have a planchette. I won't have a Ouija board. Yes, I understand that Hail Satan is my favorite documentary ever. I understand that I am a card-carrying member of the Satanic Temple now. Thank you to that movie. But I will never have a Ouija board.
So I feel like there's a difference between, like, and maybe it's because it's a kinder, gentler time for Satan, because, like, we have
right. And pro tip to our friends on Biters who are not listening to The Real Housewives: the members of the Satanic Temple are not Satan worshipers. It is a social political movement. It is what do they call themselves? A civics lesson. Yes. It is not about Satanism. So
no. They worship no deity.
Right. Of any kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry,
course,
you were gonna say.
You have the show about Satan now. Tom Wellington, something like that.
Oh, is Lucifer? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Which I actually heard was fantastic. I've never watched it.
It is. It's amazing. So maybe it's because we all think of Satan as, like, kind of the misunderstood guy who, just history is written by winners, dude, and Lucifer didn't win that battle. So, like, the book was written against him. That's all I gotta say. But like, I don't want a Ouija board in my house either. I know, like, it's a board game for ages 8 and up, which is shocking enough, but, like, no thanks. Like, I think there's a lot more malevolent things out there than, like, quote unquote Satan.
Look, I'm definitely superstitious enough that I believe that you don't open yourself up to things that you don't understand.
No.
And, like, planchette games and Ouija board games, those are definitely one of those things that you don't open yourself up to things you don't understand.
Yeah. And
which, by the way, there is an awesome podcast, I think it's called Spooked, which is produced by NPR, and there was an episode about people messing around with a Ouija board. It's true ghost stories. Freaked me out so
I
bad.
don't want anything in my house that freaks me out.
Freaked me out.
I remember playing with a Ouija board when I was a kid, but that actually didn't scare me nearly as much as China dolls. Those little porcelain dolls.
Yeah.
Because of the horror stories, the campfire stories you hear when you're a kid about those things creep me out so bad. I'm not even going to have one of those in my house.
Oh my God. Okay, I know we're totally going down a rabbit hole already, but have you heard about Robert the doll?
No.
Okay,
Oh!
you need to mess yourself up and look up Robert the doll, who is a doll in Florida.
Okay, you know what? I think I have heard about this.
And Spooked actually did an episode about Robert the doll that also scared me and messed me up.
Yes. Okay. I follow a YouTuber who actually she collects like super creepy stuff. Like I think that's where I heard about the Dybbuk box, which is the box that contains the evil spirit, the Dybbuk, and she did an episode on Robert the doll, and there's another doll that she did an episode on too, and it kind of looks like a Raggedy Andy doll. And
yeah.
I mean, dolls are creepy anyway, like all dolls, like teddy bears, fine, but
yeah,
any
no Ouija boards, no dolls,
doll. Nope.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
And I had no idea that that the thing on the Ouija board was called a planchette, and a planchette is that there's like two different kinds.
I'm not sure that I knew that there were two different kinds. I always knew, well, I guess I knew the one that's used as a pointer on a Ouija board, and then I did know that there was one that you could put a pen or a pencil in and use it for automatic writing.
Yeah. Because I've always seen people do automatic writing just freehand.
Right. They totally are channeling whatever they're channeling. And
right. I had no idea that planchettes were used for automatic writing. So I learned something new on this episode.
All right. So we got our ratings in. Okay. We're 7 minutes in and we've managed to rate the episode and identify what episode we're doing. So
check.
I looked up a few numbers. I still can't find any budget numbers about this series, although I did see a brief snippet of an interview that Stephen King did for a podcast called Postmortem, where he actually kind of rhapsodizes about how great it was to work on this, and that he very much appreciates the 1994 miniseries, but they weren't hampered this time by budget or swearing or content, that they were able to do a lot more. So obviously the budget is bigger, but I still didn't get any budget numbers. I did look on...
What an amazing name for a podcast.
Postmortem. I know.
I'm kind of jealous.
I did look this up on Rotten Tomatoes and was horribly disappointed. So the overall audience score for The Stand as a miniseries reboot, 23%. The average tomato meter, which I didn't know it was called a tomato meter, 60%. So let's just say that the audience and the critics at Rotten Tomatoes generally don't like this nearly as much as I do, and maybe not even as much as you do.
You know, like I said, I was very, very disappointed upon my first viewing of the first episode. Like I said, it gets better, but I have since rewatched the 1994 version, and now I'm kind of trying to follow along, but it is very, very difficult because it's like comparatively their storylines are very scattered. So I'm actually just sort of skipping around to certain scenes. And yeah, I don't know why. Maybe it was just because it was like a simpler time for me in 1994 when I was 14.
And I was kind of trying to figure out why I missed it. And I can't remember if I've said this to you or on previous podcasts, but that was like right in the thick of nursing school for me.
I was thinking that, yeah.
So I pretty much wasn't doing anything other than working and doing school.
Yeah. And in 1994, like you would have had to have watched it weekly or recorded it weekly on your VHS recorder because there were no DVRs in 1994. So I can understand you missing the boat on that one.
And really, honest to God, nursing school is terrifying because they're like, these people's lives are in your hands.
Uh-huh.
Which is the way it should be.
Right.
But you really, yeah, I didn't do anything other than work and do school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so our title, Blank Page, is taken from something that Mother Abigail says, and I'm roughly paraphrasing it, but she says essentially that this new world is a blank page on which we need to write a new story. She's saying that to Nick when he kind of sees her in a dream. And then also Nick actually sees that book blow open at the end of his dream, and I don't know if it's a journal or if it's a book that has blank pages in it, but that's his vision of the blank page.
Huh. I
You missed that
Mother Abigail thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention, but I was also thinking of Nadine using the planchette.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that's what I got.
Well, we had two writers. So we had a woman named Jill Killington, who has also written under the name Jill Kill, which I think is really funny. And we had Owen King, who is Stephen King's son, one of Stephen King's sons.
Mm-hmm.
So Stephen King has a son named Joe Hill. He has Owen King, and then he has a daughter named Naomi, and I don't know if Naomi has a different last name or if it's Naomi King, and I will be honest and say I didn't look it up because I'm not a good human being.
I was going to say, I feel like in Stephen King's bio on IMDb, I read that her name is different now. She probably took a married name.
So Jill Kill, I'm going to shorten it, has 4 total writer credits, something in pre-production called Survive the Night, a thing called the Blackout Experiment, which I'm going to actually look her up and read the description on this because it sounded pretty good. And then The Stand, and then a thing called All We Had. But the Blackout Experiment, and this sounds right up your alley. Sorry, I'm being slow, but I decided that I was going to actually look at this. Okay, first of all, her picture on IMDb is epic.
Fire.
Yes. Yeah. All right, the Blackout Experiment. 6 strangers wake up in a room garnished with weapons and are forced to kill each other or watch someone they care deeply about die.
It's kind of a reboot of Saw, practically.
Okay, well, it
kind of sounds like Saw.
So it says that it was done in 2021, so it's not... I mean, apparently it's going to be released sometime this year. I don't know, not having watched Saw, I didn't recognize that as a...
Or it kind of sounds like the Belko Experiment, which was a really good movie.
Which also I haven't... Yeah. Again, totally up your alley.
Yeah, so, I mean, horror movies, I'm right there. Also the one that's in pre-production that's called Survive the Night. It says it's horror, music. So I'm really hoping that it's not a musical because those just fall flat for me. But there's no synopsis and there's only one cast member credited so far, Aaron Groban, who I don't really
Rocky
recognize.
Horror Picture Show.
What's that?
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
What about it?
Musical horror movies don't always fall flat.
I don't feel like Rocky Horror.
I know. I'm just being a jerk.
Yeah. So but the Aaron Groban, his the name of the character he is playing is Klaus Fondue. So I mean, if for
Oh,
no
that
other
doesn't bode
reason,
well.
yeah, if for no other reason, it should be funny, unintentionally. But it looks like she also did a screenplay called All We Had. That was with Katie Holmes.
And I couldn't, there wasn't a description, and I didn't dig any deeper, so it looks like it got produced. I mean, there's actually shots from the film.
A mother struggles to make a better life for her daughter. That's super vague.
You know, the only thing I've ever watched Katie Holmes in was Pieces of April, which was a great movie.
It was. She was also really, really good in the indie movie Go. But
she just made a terribly unfortunate marriage.
She did, and I'm glad she escaped.
Yeah, escaped is the right word.
But the movie was also had writing credits for Josh Boone, who also
has worked on The Stand.
Is one of
the big people behind The Stand.
Yep. So.
Okay, so our other writer, as I said, was Owen King. He has written he's written a book and a graphic novel. So he wrote a book called Double Feature, and I looked it up, and it totally does not sound Stephen King-ish at all. Then he wrote a graphic novel with someone, and I didn't write down the name of his co-author. It's called Intro to Alien Invasion, and it's about an alien invasion on a college campus. And it's supposed to be quite funny. He has a movie in pre-production called Sleeping Beauties, where basically there's this town that gets taken over by something, and all of the women of the town get, like, wrapped in cocoons.
Creepy.
It sounded creepy. And then he did a short called Father-Daughter Dance, and it sounds like basically this man is like, my wife got religion, my kid's life is changing, and I don't know who I am. So I don't know. I mean, the only thing that sounds Stephen King-ish is Sleeping Beauties. So, although Stephen King has talked about being very happy that Owen is working on this project and feels like he's done really good writing for this project. So,
you know, I was watching something this weekend that I, in a roundabout way, found out that it was written originally by Stephen King, and I had no idea.
What's that?
The movie Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, I remember that Stephen King was involved in that. I think it was one of his Richard Bachman novels, wasn't it?
It was. I had no idea because, of course, I always equate Stephen King with supernaturally stuff, and it,
Girl, I am telling you, you have got to read The Mercedes Man. Or listen to it. Because there's no black and white version yet.
They'll make it into a mini-series.
Because it's not supernatural at all.
Well, but it's supposed to have Holly Gibney in it.
It does, but okay, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that are going to blow your mind. So first of all, Holly Gibney is a 40-ish frumpy white woman.
Oh, I'm really glad they chose to reclass that character.
Right? I'm really happy that they chose Cynthia Erivo to play her in The Outsider. Yeah. And I think it was a really good choice and really interesting choice.
Definitely.
But she's kind of like a neurotic savant, and she's like a computer savant, which is the role that she really plays in the story of The Mercedes Man. I'm not going to tell you any more than that, but mind blown.
Okay,
but you got to listen to it because it's not supernatural at all. Okay, so we have two directors for this episode. Bridget Savage Cole, who also has written or has worked as a director under the name Bridget Parlardy, Parlar, no reference to weird social media sites, DY. And then a woman named Danielle Crudy, Krudy. I, honest to God, didn't recognize anything that either of them had worked on. Bridget Savage Cole has 14 director credits. Danielle Crudy has 4, and they worked together on a show called Blow the Man Down, a movie or a documentary called Blow the Man Down. And I will be 100% honest and say I didn't dig any deeper because I wasn't interested.
Yeah, no, I don't recognize any of their directorial credits.
I was like, okay. It's interesting that I've never heard of them. It's interesting that they've made their big debut with this production of The Stand that, for better or for worse, is a huge production and has lots of famous people in it.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
I will tell you that this, and I looked again tonight to see if there were any new reviews. This miniseries has been soundly panned by the critics. So it's really unfortunate that, so many great actors have worked on this, and, that you have Stephen King being the primary inspiration for the story, and that a lot of people are kind of cutting their teeth on this, and that it's been so badly panned, but it has been.
So here's my thing is, if the 1994 version did not exist, I think I would like this version a lot better. But we don't live in that universe, and the 1994 version does exist. And so I think I had a much higher expectation for the 2020 reboot.
I'm so interested to watch the 1994 version.
I'm going to laugh so hard if you hate it.
And I might. I mean, I actually might. I'm not going to deny that I might.
But also, having seen other Stephen King series and miniseries and movies and things like that, this one does pale in comparison to those. The Outsider, which I, had a really hard time getting into, but I ultimately did, and I'm really happy because I loved it. Bag of Bones was really good, and then of course all of his movies, the It movies and The Dark Tower, and just this 9-episode series is not really doing the story justice, in my opinion.
Okay, remind me that you said that, because it leads into something that I definitely want to talk about in Rotting Potpourri, or I may talk about it in my bad. But remind me that you said that.
Okay.
And the fact that you talked about the 2 It movies leads us right into our featured cast member.
Imagine that.
So our featured cast member this week is Owen Teague, who plays Harold Lauder. I'm going to say that I didn't dig deep. I relied on you to do that. But I'm going to tell you, I think that he is a great Harold. He is not consistent with Harold the way he's portrayed in the book. I don't know if he's consistent at all with Harold as he was portrayed in the 94 series. But I think he's great. I mean, that smile. Oh my God, that smile is so creepy.
He is, like, I think we've talked about it before. He is much less, I've used the word already in the podcast. I'm going to say it again. He's more malevolent. He's much creepier. He's a lot less pathetic than the original 1994 version.
And he was more pathetic in the book, too.
Yeah. So, and there was an article that did talk about how his character differed so much from the book. He was apparently in the book he was supposed to be over 250 pounds.
Yeah,
chocoholic.
He was. Yeah, crappy nutrition, morbidly obese. Actually, ends up like partway through the book giving up the payday candy bars and exercising and shedding a bunch of weight, and his skin clears up and he like gains some self-confidence, and then Nadine happens. So
oh God. Yeah, that is not at all like either the 1994 version or currently the 2020 version. I
just want to point out that Owen Teague is 22 years old. So Owen Teague is 22 years old, and he is carrying a significant portion of this series.
Definitely.
Which is amazing.
Yes.
He is fantastic.
And I would just like to say that he is much better looking in real life than he is on the stand. Like,
I
I
agree.
don't
I
know.
actually looked at his IMDb pictures and I was like, oh, Antigua's kind of appealing.
So he made the cover of a magazine, and it's on his Instagram. And he thanks them on his Instagram, and he's a knockout. Um, let's see if I can find it. Behind the Blinds. Thank you, Behind the Blinds, for putting me in your cover of this issue and introducing me to brilliantly imaginative photographer Hatter Pinchin. Small world, turns out from from the same hometown. So yeah, he is at Owen Teagan on Insta. I'm sorry, at Real Owen Teague on Instagram, and just Owen Teague on Twitter. He is a super lefty, so if that is not your thing, do not follow him.
If you're a super lefty, don't follow him.
No. If
You're not a super
a
lefty, don't follow him.
Yes.
I feel like we say that a lot. Just saying.
So the only person that I can think of that was not a super lefty that had any sort of political view on their social media was the wrestler that was on Preacher, and I can't remember his name. But yes.
Yeah.
We do
The
say that a
wrestler
lot.
that was on Preacher.
But there is an article on Awards Daily, and these are Owen's words. These are not my words. So he says that Harold very much fits the alt-right movement. The way that Flag, Alexander Skarsgård, is portrayed fits with Trump and those kind of politics. Someone that can take power and can attract that sort of following, Teague explained. While Flag is obviously not quite like Trump in many ways, he is still the sort of demagogue who wants to complete control and complete loyalty and power. He plays on your fears and your hatred, which is exactly what Trump does. So, if that is not something that you buy into,
Don't follow him.
Yes.
And don't hate on him either, because life is too short to hate on him.
It is. And whether you agree with that or not, he is doing an amazing job on the stand. Like you said, he is 22, which, like, when I saw his date of birth in 1998, I was just like, oh my God, I'm so old. That's the year I graduated.
Ah, that's funny.
But I don't recognize him from a whole lot. He was in one episode of Bones, but he was also in the movie, and I think we've talked about it before because it's sort of zombie related, and it's also Stephen King. The movie Cell with John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson.
So for some reason, I was thinking that was a Stephen King property.
Yep.
Okay.
It's basically that our cell phones make us into these like I want to say zombies because like we're kind of brainless, but we're also super violent. So that was way back in 2016. And then of course he was Patrick Hockstetter in the two It and Chapter 2.
And they list him as dead Hockstetter in Chapter 2.
Yes. So he is one of the bullies in It. So there's another Stephen King property. And then he was also in an episode of Black Mirror, Archangel.
I wondered if that was something... Okay, sorry. Koba has decided to play with the Babble Ball toy, which she hasn't played with for days, but she's decided to play with it now. Yep. Anyway, yes, I was wondering if you were going to mention that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think there is a Black Mirror episode that I disliked. The episode Archangel is basically another one of those that's kind of like Cell, where, and of course this is not Stephen King, but it's how, like, we're using technology and it's like super invasive on our lives, and you know, it's it basically becomes more of an evil thing than it is a benefit to our lives. So that was that episode of Black Mirror.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, he's got 3 acting credits in post-production, only one with a kind of an upcoming date in 2021. Montana Story follows 2 estranged siblings as they return home to the sprawling ranch where they once knew and loved.
So he was also in Bloodline, which I don't know anything about. Do you know anything about that?
I don't.
And he was in multiple episodes of Bloodline, and Ben Mendelsohn, who we know from The Outsider, another Stephen King property, was also in Bloodline.
Oh, of course. Bloodline's a Netflix property. No, I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Huh. It's sort of got a similar theme as his upcoming movie, though. A family finds themselves forced to face their past secrets and scars when the black sheep returns home. He takes roles with complicated families, it seems like.
Well, and I'm going to say, I mean, this kid is 22 years old, and he's already got 30 IMDb credits.
Right, and he's acted with some pretty heavy hitters. So I expect to see a lot of good things coming out of Owen in the future.
But I definitely don't want to see him as unappealing and creepy as as Harold Lauder is.
No. But he's doing a very good job. He is another. They didn't really. I don't feel like they changed the casting so much as they did with some of the other characters like Larry, but they didn't go back to the book Harold, and they kind of stayed true to the 1994 version Harold, except that he's way less pathetic. Like I don't feel sorry for this Harold. I feel totally creeped out by him, and like he gets worse. Like we've seen through episode 5, and it's really, really hard to yeah.
Well, and his fate, which I'm going to be really interested to know if his fate is the same in the 94 series. His fate in the book is pretty interesting. I suspect it's the same, and we can talk offline about it. But
okay.
Yeah, I just think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else about Owen Teague?
No, he doesn't put that much out there as far as like his personal life. I am interested in the picture of him holding a baby goat on his Instagram. It says Happy New Year from us farm animals. So it looks
is
like
that
he
his
may live
past,
on a farm,
or is that he's got a farm now?
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't see. I'm not that anyone can be a party animal in a pandemic, but he doesn't seem to be one that makes a lot of headlines. So good for him. He's focused on his career.
Very good. Well, 2 thumbs up for the casting. I think they did a fantastic job casting him, and I'm glad that they didn't totally stick with the Harold Lauder of the book.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've only got a few things in Whisperer's Corner, and I'm starting out with Walking Dead stuff. So I read an article on Den of Geek today that said that they have completely tweaked Lucille's comic book arc. So she just has a brief appearance in Here's Negan, the one-off about Negan. And he basically, is like, yeah, she died in the early days of the ZA. Apparently that's not entirely the case in the arc that we see in season 10C. Which I also found out we're not the only ones calling it 10C, which, doesn't surprise me. But So it'll be interesting to see where they take Lucille. And it's been a long time since I've read Here's Negan, so I may actually need to reread Here's Negan before things get restarted. 10C apparently is also very Daryl heavy, including at least one episode that covers part of the 6-year period that was skipped over in the time jump. We may be getting Dog's backstory. And we apparently are getting some scenes of him in his search for Rick.
The dog story I can get behind.
So, by the way, Dog is played by a dog named Seven. Just so you know.
I don't know if that's much better than just calling him Dog.
Right? There was part of me that was like, somebody's like, okay, that's like, yeah, that's like the other dogs in the litter were 1 through 6.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
That's funny. Happy birthday to Callan McAuliffe and Avi Nash.
Oh, hey, yeah. I missed that. Oh, that's cool. Very cool. I did find out today, which I didn't know, there was actually a comic book series that consisted of 4 issues and a one-off a year later called The Walking Dead. It was written by a guy back in 1989. The guy's name is Jim Somerville, and he was both the writer and the artist. And apparently the zombies in that series happened because a flying saucer crashed, and they could think and talk and organize.
Huh.
Right? I'm probably not going to seek it out because my stack of stuff on my Kindle is bigger than my list of series that I really should be watching. But yeah, I thought that was super interesting.
That is really interesting. So,
and I'm kind of surprised that they didn't have trouble with
getting the naming rights or whatever. Yeah, I've always been curious about that because we're actually about to watch a documentary called White Noise, and of course there is a movie called White Noise, and I always wonder, you see that where there's 2 completely unrelated things, and like how did they name them?
Wasn't like the first movie White Noise a Michael Keaton movie?
It is.
I watched that movie. It was like a ghost movie, and it was really creepy, and I liked it.
Yes. But like when something is like the same thing and it's named the same thing, like wouldn't there be some sort of like copyright infringement?
Right.
Or like I don't know how all of that works.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how Robert Kirkman got away with naming his series The Walking Dead when there was a Walking Dead several years prior to his first one.
And it was about zombies.
Yeah, not sure. Okay, so the only other things that I have are The Stand related. One is that after episode 5, Stephen King took to Twitter to say just how thrilled he is with the miniseries. He basically said all of the cast were, in his words, so damn good. And he was super thrilled with all of the music, especially that they used Don't Fear the Reaper at the end of episode 5.
Yeah, I did notice that this week. I was wondering if they were going to do it, because, it's the very first song you hear in the 1994.
It's the right song for this series. I don't care what year it's been made. Right? And it's a great song. So I'm going to take us into a little bit of controversy. I'm not sure how I feel about all of the Amber Heard hate.
Really?
I'm really not sure how I feel about it, because I got some more hate from a friend of mine as a private message this week, and she was like, I'm really enjoying it. I really hate Amber Heard, but it's okay because she plays someone who's a horrible person.
Okay, that's my feelings too.
Okay, so I went back and
I'm totally Team Depp.
I did some reading because I don't know enough about it, and I'm going to be honest and say I only read a couple of articles, but the articles that I read were pretty much like, Johnny Depp is not a nice person when he drinks and drugs, and there's some legit evidence that he really was, at least in a fair number of the circumstances she alleges, as abusive as she said he was. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know enough to say. And I mean, Amber Heard really did not enter my consciousness before Aquaman, and she was atrocious in Aquaman. That was a horrible movie, aside from looking at Jason Momoa, but...
The stuff that she accused Johnny Depp of, and then being caught on tape to admitting that it was like completely the other way around, and that nobody would believe him, and she just seems like a terrible person.
I didn't read anything that said that, so again, I only read a couple of articles, and I didn't follow it when it first came out because I was like, ugh, this is just squicky.
And when it first came out, and it was like Johnny Depp is a wife beater and all these things, and I was like, okay, we're canceling Johnny Depp. That sucks, but actions have consequences. And then it came out that she was the one doing the abuse, and I'm not going to say that. I hate to say this, he's not like an innocent party. I think he was probably just as combative, but he never filed domestic abuse, false domestic abuse charges against her. So I'm like, if you two want to be mutually combative in the privacy of your own home, whatever. But the minute one of you accuses the other of doing something that either you are doing or you are both doing, I don't know, it sets it at a whole another level. And if we're canceling Johnny Depp, we're canceling Amber Heard too. Sorry, actions have consequences. He doesn't get to be in another Pirates movie. She doesn't get to be in another Aquaman movie. I think that's fair. And I kind of have the same feeling about The Stand, where I'm like, I really hate seeing her in The Stand, but she's playing a terrible person, so I'm okay with it. I just don't think she should get paid for it. Yeah. I've got no love for Amber Heard. I really didn't know who she was before Aquaman. Also, I had probably seen some stuff that she was in, but she was never really on my radar. But I am on Team Johnny.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I'm not on either team because I have really liked some things that Johnny Depp has done. I also think he's made some terrible acting choices, and I just don't know anything about him as a human. I can see that he's probably someone who would have some substance issues and who would not be a nice person.
Yeah.
So I'm not on a team. I just think that the Amber Heard hate is really interesting, and The Stand has definitely brought some of that out again.
Yeah. Although, what's funny is when I first watched The Stand and I hadn't done any research on it or anything, I really didn't recognize her.
I didn't either, but again, I only knew her from Aquaman, so...
Yeah. And also I was having the whole issue of they're confusing, the whole Nadine and... Oh, the other chick that Heather Graham played. There was that whole...
Oh, right, because confusion. They so totally meshed those characters into one in the story that you know.
Right. So, yeah, there's not a lot that I know Amber from. Basically, Machete Kills and Zombieland.
Was she in Zombieland?
Apparently, her credit is 406. I don't remember that character.
Was she like the chick that
Oh, yeah, she was the hot neighbor.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep, that's right. I'm like 406. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's sad. I mean, I don't know which one of them is in the right, which one of them is in the wrong. As someone who's in the middle of a divorce, they probably both have some fault.
I think they both need some substance abuse treatment and some counseling for sure.
That's probably accurate. And
I'm not saying that there's not a road to redemption. They didn't murder anybody or anything like that. So, like, get your act together and then come back.
And I just think it's sad that okay, this is not nice. And I'm not hating on Amber Heard. I'm just commenting. But I don't think she had much of a career to begin with. And I just think it's sad that they both have lost careers over this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. All right, onward to Housewives housekeeping. And the only thing I have for housekeeping is you and I did the first episode of Capes and Lunatics After Dark yesterday.
Mm-hmm. It was super funny, and it was a chick fest.
So for anybody who's interested, Capes and Lunatics, we've podcasted with them before. They do a lot of comic book heavy material. We have done movie reviews with them before because neither of us is particularly comic-y. I try to be, but I'm not very good at it. And anyway, Phil, who is one of the main people with Capes and Lunatics, proposed that we do a hard R Patreon-only group of movie reviews. So we started to do that, and we opened with the movie Boogie Nights with Mark Wahlberg and Heather Graham, who was in the stand.
Right.
And it was great fun, and we discovered a lot of very intellectual and interesting things about Lilith Hellfire, who is one of the other one of the other hosts of Capes and Lunatics. And we discovered that Charlie desperately needs to have a collection taken up for a new laptop.
I was wondering, is it his laptop or is it his connection?
I got the sense that it was his laptop, because then Phil was like, do you need to borrow your son's laptop? And he was like, no, I'm getting my wife's laptop. And then, like, he had software issues with that, and I was like, okay.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm like a novice podcaster, and of course now I work from home, but we have always had like the highest connection speed.
Yeah,
like,
but you also live with a gamer.
I do. I also live with a gamer. But I'm one of those who will use my laptop to death. Like, before I got the laptop that I have now, which is like a Surface Book or something, I don't know. I had my last laptop for like between 7 and 10 years. Like, it was on its last legs. You know me, Apple owns my life.
And I did spoil myself this week, and I ordered a fancy Bluetooth keyboard for my computer.
Ooh.
Yeah, because, the laptop keyboards just leave a little bit to be desired, and I do a lot of work from home. So I was like, I think I'm going to get a nice keyboard. And we'll see, I may end up needing to get a Bluetooth Surface Pad as well. Like mouse pad.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I'm a weirdo, and like, so my Surface Book has the detachable keyboard where I can just have my screen as a touchscreen tablet. But my work computer is a laptop, and I have 3 screens, including the laptop at home. And I use a wired mouse and keyboard because I just cannot abide going through batteries. It drives me nuts.
So I should have read a little better, but I think it's probably rechargeable. I don't think I need batteries for it.
Okay.
The one that I looked at on Amazon was rechargeable. And then I was like, I'm going to look at the Apple Store and see what they recommend. And of course it was more expensive, but it was one of their products. So,
and I wish there was a better source of reliable, rechargeable, like double and triple A batteries, because like running out of batteries is not my problem. We buy them at Costco. They're out, in the drinks fridge in the garage. And
it's the wastefulness of it.
I know I don't have to keep batteries in the refrigerator. It's just a thing that I do now, and now I always know where they are. They're in the crisper in the drinks fridge.
That's funny.
But we do have battery recycling here in Juneau, so I do have a big bag of old batteries that get taken to recycling. So I do recycle my batteries. I'm not I try to recycle as much as possible as we can in basically an island on Alaska. Yes, we're a peninsula, but everything is either shipped in via boat or plane, or out via boat and plane. So, we're very limited on what we can recycle, but I take things to household hazardous waste instead of, pouring them down a drain or in a ditch or whatever. So it's not even that. It's just that inevitably, it's like I'm in the middle of presenting in a meeting or something, and the batteries in my mouse will die. It just, that happens. And so I'm corded. I'm tethered.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll let you know about the new keyboard, and I'll let you know if I end up getting a mouse, a pad as well. We'll see.
Yeah. I love technology. I'm just super resistant to it.
Right. All right. So good, bads, and uglies. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I think I've had you go first for a while. So I have very little notes for this episode. And my good was a very minor good, but it was Tom Cullen. We get the first appearance of Tom Cullen.
Yes.
And he is one of my favorite characters in the 1994 version, and he is also starting out to be an amazing character in this version too. And I know he is not our
featured
featured cast member.
He might be at some point, because I'm interested in the actor.
Yes, so I love the actor. I immediately recognized him in something that I have recently watched. I was watching Manhunt on Netflix, and I was like, I know that guy from somewhere. Well, he's the corrections guard Piscatella from Orange is the New Black. And so
right, okay, that's I actually looked up his IMDb, and I was like, oh, okay, he was in Orange is the New Black.
Yes, he was Piscatella, and he played an awful person in Orange is the New Black. And to see him as the sweet, mentally disabled Tom Cullen is amazing. He is a great actor. And like I said, I love the original Tom Cullen. I mean, when you say MOON, that spells
right,
whatever.
Right.
Everybody knows what you are talking about. So I'm really happy that we're finally getting Tom Cullen into the scene.
Awesome.
So. And I kind of like the update to Tom Cullen. I love his little spiel that he's like, my name's Tom Cullen. I'm 42 years old. I am disabled. If my manner offends you, please let me know. Just his whole little spiel that he just goes into every, 20 minutes is just, I love it. I love him. I can't wait to see more, because he's such an important character.
And not to spoil things, but way forward in episode 5, and I'm not going to say anything about episode 5 other than we see a lot more of Tom Cullen, and I was like, oh.
I can't remember. I'm conflating a lot of the episodes together, so I can't remember what happens in 4 and 5, individually.
Okay, so I don't know how much of what happens in 5 happens in what you watched, but it's not entirely consistent with what happened in the book.
Okay. Originally, Tom Cullen was played by Bill, and I'm probably going to say his name wrong, Fagerbakke?
Boy, I don't recognize that at all.
So the thing that I really, really recognize him from even back in 1994, is he was in the TV series Coach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, again, I love the character, and he's so important, at least in the 1994 miniseries that I watched.
He is very important in the book as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So good.
He's very important. So I hope that they play true with that here as well.
Yeah. So that was my good.
Well, my good was that we get interesting bookends. So we see Nadine as a child getting sucked into the game with the planchette. And then we end with Nadine as an adult communicating with Flag through the planchette.
And so in the book, and this is why I started the episode with another episode of Dianne liked the book better.
Right.
In the book, do they give her childhood backstory?
They don't. At least if they do, they certainly don't give her the backstory that she's getting in this series. And I told you the last time that we podcasted that even though I just finished the book, like the big stuff sticks out, but the little stuff like that, I'm like, all right, was that the book or was that the series? But I don't think they give us anything about her backstory like that in the book.
Okay, so I was wondering about that because in the 1994 version, we don't get any of her backstory. She just meets up with Larry in New York and then breaks off with him some point on their journey to Colorado.
Right, which again is not at all what happens in the book.
No, and they make it to Colorado separately, her long after he has. So there's absolutely no childhood backstory. There's no she seems to have only gotten the dreams since the world has ended and everyone's getting the Flag and the Mother Abigail dreams, and it doesn't seem like he's kind of been with her whole life, or she's been promised to him her whole life. So I was wondering if that was a book thing or if that's just something they decided to throw in the 2020 version, which is weird because one of my biggest complaints is we are not getting enough of the characters' backstories for me to really care about them. And we did in the 1994 version that was only 6 hours, and we're getting 9 hours now. So I'm like, you got the time. Tell the story.
Oh my God, you are so leading into my bad. But
okay. So, but no, I do actually like the Nadine backstory. I kind of liked the whole she's been like kind of communicating with him, and she's
okay. But I'm gonna bust into a little bit of rotting potpourri here. So
okay.
First of all, it wasn't clear to me until the very end that she was in like a state school for orphaned girls. I thought she was just at a boarding school.
What? No.
Yeah.
Totally got.
You got that vibe. I didn't get that vibe at all. And then secondly, I was like, what has she done that has made her an object of ridicule and somebody who the other kids are tormenting and torturing? Like, what has she done that's made her so different from the other kids? Because I actually see a normal-looking, fairly pretty young girl. Like, it just didn't make any sense to me. So I didn't really feel like they gave us a lot of backstory in terms of why she was so different and why she was a subject of ridicule. And, it just didn't make any sense to me.
So I feel like, one, she was the new girl.
Okay, that's fair.
And then two, like, if you're in the midst of, like, a bunch of outcasts and you're the one who seems normal, then you're the outcast. Like, she was the funny pretty girl in a bunch of girls who, have probably been living at this state home for, months or something. And so, yeah, they're going to crap on her, like, you might have one that takes pity on her because, like, she's a total fish out of water. But and it's interesting that we just get that part of her backstory. We don't know why she's all of a sudden in a state home. Like, did her parents die? Did they like give her up? Were they like, did they get murdered like by Flag, or like, why is she there? We don't know. We'll probably never know.
Right, because they're just going to give us that little snippet of her backstory and not tell us anything else.
Yeah, and see, I was more curious about like what made Nadine be the one that Flag
he picked.
Focused on. Yeah,
right.
Like, she seemed to have like no control over it, and so all throughout, and even in the 1994 version, you said it before, where she's repulsed by him, but she's also drawn to him.
Right. We completely talked about that because I got my timeline mixed up last week. But yeah, I mean, she's very conflicted about her connection to Flag in the book, and it sounds like in the 94 version as well. I do not get the sense from this character in what I have seen thus far, and I am not going to watch ahead any further. I do not get the sense that she is at all conflicted about her connection to Flag.
I think she's a little bit conflicted, but I think she's far less conflicted. And I don't know if that's because she's sort of been there all her life, or if that's just her character now, in that, like, she kind of likes being the one he picked, And plus, I mean, come on, Alexander Skarsgård. Like, I'm not knocking on the guy who played Randall Flagg originally, because I'm sure he was a stud in his time, but yeah, he's just like, you got a Skarsgård now. Good for you, girl.
That's so funny. Oh my God. All right, what's your bad?
So my bad, and it's not anything bad about like the episode or anything. It's bad about Harold, and not like the way that Owen is playing the character or anything, but Harold is so insecure, and I'm just like, do guys not understand that makes you even less attractive? Like,
look, I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna be a little inappropriate on biters, but there's that whole incel, like, they put out these huge rambles on Facebook or Twitter where they're like, women shouldn't this and women shouldn't that, and women this and women that, and most of us are like, wow, that's a lot of words for I have no idea where the clitoris is located.
Right?
I'm
just like, yeah, I mean, like, even if Stu weren't the alpha male that he is, dude, you are given total beta vibes to kind of run with your incel thing. But what's funny is, I told you I went back and was watching the 1994 version. I was skipping around, and I was like, I don't remember that is how Stu and Fran and Harold met.
Again, it's not.
No, but it is not. And again, I prefer the 1994 version of their meeting better. But yeah, Harold, where he's like, are you going to go with the guy that saved your life, or are you going to go with Dimples? Just like,
right.
Dude, I'm going with Dimples.
Right. Well, and what's really funny, and again, I know that we spent a lot of time going, that's not what it was like in 1994, and that's not what it was like in the book. But in the book, like, Franny is pretty much like, I loved him from the minute I laid my eyes on him.
So she was so much nice. Like I said, they had a much more amicable relationship in the book, her and Harold, or not in the book, in the 1994 version. And like, she was genuinely nice to him. She like, when she was talking to her dad when he wasn't around, she was kind of like, oh God, him again, but like, she was really nice to him, and she did lean on him, but she also made it very, very clear that, like, that's not happening, dude. And like, when she met Stu in the 94 version, she was like, hey, how are you doing? I'm Fran. And, like, there wasn't that instant, like, I'm hot for Stu, But I mean, apparently that's how Harold felt, because there was, and Stu was also like, dude, I'm not trying to horn in on your girl. And then of course he winds up horning in on the girl.
Well, and that's kind of more the way that he is in the book. He's like, look, I totally get that you're with this girl. I'm not trying to hook up with her. I just, I've been following you guys. I've been following the stuff that you've been painting, like telling people where to go. I just want to hook up with some other human beings.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the way that the connection for Stu initially happens.
In the 94 version, Stu actually finds
Glenn first.
First.
Yeah,
and then
same here
Harold
as well.
Glenn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
And he actually leaves Glenn, meets up with Franny and Harold, and then they go back and look for Glenn.
Oh, they glossed over that in the 94 version. Yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just like, oh my God, like, he is so...
But he was that
obsessive
insecure
about Franny.
and obsessive in the book, too. He just played it differently.
Yeah. But we talked about, you had sent me a TikTok. I had already seen it, but it was, the song Jesse's Girl.
Oh my God, which is so
written
funny.
From Jesse's Girl.
From the perspective of Jesse's girl. Yeah, being like, this dude's a creeper and he won't stop staring at me.
Right. And like, I put myself in Fran's position and I'm just like, oh my God, dude, if you were the last man on earth, I still would not be attracted to you, because just like, not even physically, like just the way that you behave, like, is embarrassing. Like, when no one's around, I'm embarrassed for you.
Okay, pro tip, biters, this is the way women actually talk. It's not nice, it's not pleasant, but it's very true.
And I still have sympathy for the guy, but not enough to let him off the hook about his, like, obsessive need to get out of the friend zone. And if any of you have listened to me, you know how much I hate the word friend zone, because there's no such thing.
Yeah, no, and you said it accurately. I'm not going to use quite the same language that you used when we weren't on Biters. But, boy, if the only motive to your friendship is going to bed with me, that's not a friendship.
Yeah, no. That's no basis for friendship. If that is my only value to you, then I have no value to you.
Yeah.
Because if that is your only motivation, move along.
Yeah. Oh my God, Smalls is totally talking. Can you hear him? He's like, rah,
yes.
rah, rah.
Smalls agreements.
He's totally not into the friend zone either.
All right, what was your bad?
Okay, so my bad has something to do with something that you brought up earlier, or has to do with something you brought up earlier. Excuse me, I think I'm gonna sneeze, so hang in there with me if I do. You have said a couple of times, look, they only had 6 hours for the 1994 series, and I can't believe that they're not getting more story and more backstory covered in this, which has 9 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I am right there with you, because what they didn't do with the Nick Andros backstory in this episode,
yes,
just makes me so furious. So first of all, Nick is a great character. Nick is a really important character. What they didn't do with him is just heartbreaking.
Yeah, there was just no development. It's like all of a sudden there's a deaf mute guy and he got beat up, and then he kind of cared for one of the guys, and boom, he's Mother Abigail's voice. Like, no.
Well, and the thing that's super interesting, and I don't know if this is true in the 94 series, but in the book, he actually ends up getting kind of derailed in this small town where he gets beaten up. he ends up developing something of a relationship with the sheriff in the small town who is investigating the beating.
Yep.
He develops... And the doctor. Yes. And this is very early on in the Captain Trips pandemic. And he ends up kind of becoming the last guy standing and also ends up being the jailer for the 3 guys who beat him up. Yep. Which puts him in a really, really weird position.
Yep. That's exactly what happened in the 94 version.
And that is not at all how it's handled, obviously, if you've watched as far as episode 3. I mean, waking up in the hospital with one guy and, like, caring for that guy as he's dying or trying to care for that guy as he's dying. No. Nope. And so I feel like we just miss so much of who Nick is.
Yep.
And so much of his story, and it's very disappointing to me.
Yep. That's, I mean, 100%. When I went back and was doing a little bit of the rewatch of the original tonight, that's one of the parts that I skipped to, and I was like, yeah, I had a feeling they left out a whole lot, but I mean, like, for a 6-hour miniseries in 94, there was at least a good hour of Nick Andros' backstory.
Yeah, so that is totally my bad, and I'm a little worried that they're going to shortchange some of the other characters the same way.
I feel like they already have.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how it all evolves or doesn't.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this is a really important piece of story that they could have told, they had the time to tell, and I'm just disappointed that they didn't tell it. It makes Nick a more interesting character. It makes him an even more sympathetic character. I mean, he's kind of sympathetic already because he has one eye and he's deaf and mute in the apocalypse. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay, so what's your ugly?
My ugly is a very small ugly, but I can't stop laughing about it.
Is it a good ugly or a bad ugly?
It's a good ugly.
Okay.
So, potato chips and caviar.
Okay, I'm going to admit to you, I have never had caviar. I've had tobiko, which is flying fish eggs, but I've never had caviar.
I've had tobiko, and I have also had herring eggs.
Oh, yeah, I've had herring eggs, and they're gross.
Yeah, I didn't like herring eggs. And I was actually, I mean...
That's totally a Southeast Alaska Native specialty, and they're gross.
Yeah, it's herring eggs on pine boughs.
Yes.
And
God.
So are they salted, or are they just naturally salty?
I don't know, but the one time I had them, I was like, I've had some really awful things in my mouth, and this is one.
So, and for me, it was a textural thing because I'm a very textural eater. I don't like things like tapioca. I don't like cottage cheese. And I did not like herring eggs. And for somebody who could probably literally drink a cup of, soy sauce, because I love soy sauce, the herring eggs were way too salty. So I'm
so
not
I've
sure
heard that caviar is really salty.
Yes, of course. I've also heard caviar is salty, and then to have because they're supposed to be served on like crackers.
But do you like tobiko?
I love tobiko.
Okay, interesting. So that's not a textural thing for you.
No, tobiko is softer than herring eggs.
Okay.
Yeah, herring eggs is like chewing mini bath beads.
Yeah, I just have one traumatic episode with herring eggs and only a vague memory, and I'll never do it again.
Yeah.
I'm about as excited about having herring eggs again as I would be about trying stink heads, which are salmon heads that are buried in the ground and allowed to rot.
You know, and what's funny is like I love things like kimchi and stuff, which is basically rotting cabbage.
Yeah, you don't eat rotting fish. Rotting cabbage,
no.
Maybe. Rotting fish, no.
There's a lot of native foods that I'm would give.
And seal oil.
I would try
seal oil. Oh,
yeah, seal grease and whale blubber. I would try them just because.
I wouldn't.
Have you ever heard
of? So we're totally Real Housewivesing it here, but have you ever heard of a gudok?
Is it like a gooey duck, like the clam?
No. So gudok is Eskimo ice cream.
Oh, yes, I have heard of it.
So it's originally made with whale blubber, berries, and sugar.
Yeah.
Now it's made with Crisco berries and sugar.
Ugh.
Yeah, it all sounds gross to me.
I think I would rather have the whale blubber.
And I'm totally being a white chick here. I get that. I'm being a first world white chick, but there are just some things that you don't eat.
Total westernized palate over here. I will fully admit that. But
caviar and potato chips.
Caviar and potato chips. Like, I just love that combination that, like, I don't have crackers, so, like, potato chips, you know?
Okay, so when we are together in the after times, because I have faith that it will happen again someday, we need to find some decent caviar, and we'll get some good crackers, and we'll buy some potato chips. And then we're both going to be like, okay, biters, it is salty and disgusting, regardless of what you eat it with.
Right. And then I always think of the movie You've Got Mail, where he's taking the garnish caviar, and Meg Ryan is like getting on his case about it.
Oh my God, I totally don't remember that from You've Got Mail, and I've seen You've Got Mail a couple of times. I just don't remember that at all.
Oh no, maybe it was Sleepless in Seattle.
Well, I've seen that a million times too.
It's one of them. Where like they're at a dinner party and there's like the alternating colors of caviar like around this other dish or something, and he's like scooping it up on her plate, and she's like, "That is a garnish."
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Like, it's food though. Like, of course I would eat it. Like, if I liked caviar, I would totally eat it. Like, I'm the person who like eats the orange slice garnish, you know, like it's still food.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I'm going to fall in the caviar world, but you know, the next time that we're together, we'll try it and we'll let our biters know.
Yeah, definitely. And then Glenn and his wife, who doesn't like potato chips?
Right.
So I just loved that whole scene. That was not in the original by any means. And so that was a cute little addition that I really liked in this episode.
And
so
I know this was
my
part
ugly.
of,
It was a good ugly.
I know this was part of me jacking up the timeline last time too, but I just will say it again. I really love Greg Kinnear's Glenn Bateman.
Yes.
I really do.
Yes.
Sorry,
yes.
I didn't mean to overtalk you.
I love that he vapes.
Yeah, you know, I kind of have some mixed feelings about that. I wrote in my notes in my writing potpourri, kids do not do as Glenn Bateman does.
No,
because vaping is really bad for you. Like, vaping has been associated with seizure disorders. Vaping has been associated with popcorn lung. And I will tell you, I've had patients with some weird new onset neurological stuff as a result of vaping.
Okay, and so now we're getting like way off script, but I have to tell you, Facebook tried to advertise vaping to me, and not just like vaping like nicotine or cannabis or anything like that. It was vaping B12. And I'm like, that can't be good for you. Like,
because you're supposed to smoke your vitamins.
Yeah, like I'm sure like I take a B complex supplement. Like I like the little boost that having the B complex or the B12 or whatever gives you. You know, like I feel a little more mentally alert when I take it. And sure, like I guess vaping it would like get it into your system real quick, but like I don't know if that trade-off is any good, because I really think the only thing that should be in your lungs is air, and because I'm an asthmatic, my medication, you know, like.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably not a great trade-off.
Yeah, I can't think of like, I don't think that's been studied enough to say that like it's safe. Like, don't vape your B12. Just don't. Like, take a multivitamin.
But it is a good update for Glenn.
It is.
I agree.
It seems he's younger, he's hipper. You know, I'd have been fine with the pipe, but the vaping thing is hilarious.
Yes.
So what was your ugly, and was it good or bad?
So my ugly is good, and it actually was your good, which is Tom.
Yeah.
I, too, love him. I think it's ironic and awful that you have a disabled person who can't read hook up as the first living person he sees in the apocalypse with a guy who is deaf and mute.
Right.
I mean, it's just ironic and awful, and it takes a lot for them to communicate. And actually, the chick who is relatively minor but seems to have a bigger role in this series, Julie Lawry. Do you remember Julie at all? Was she in the 94?
So I think I know who you're talking about.
So we're gonna see her. We're gonna see her in
Next
episode. Yes.
Yeah.
So she actually
played.
Oh, go ahead.
She was played by Shawnee Smith in the original, who I absolutely love. A lot of people will recognize her from the Saw movies, but also the 1988 The Blob.
Oh my God, how hilarious.
I know. It's amazing. But like, it was a very minor role, and she actually comes back to play a little bit of another bit of minor role towards the end of the series. She kind of pops back up in Las Vegas.
Right.
But yeah.
So I've watched 4 and 5, and she has a much bigger role in this miniseries than she had in either the book or It Sounds Like 94.
Yeah. I mean, it was literally like a 6 or 7 minute thing,
right?
That it was in 94, and then of course, like I said, she comes back in Vegas for another few minutes. But yeah.
But she is the reason that Tom and Nick are initially able to communicate.
Oh, see, in the 94 version, she is she wants to be alone with Nick. And when Nick is like, no, I got to take care of my friend, she refuses to like read his note to Tom Cullen to like give Nick's name and everything.
Oh, she says horrible things.
She says horrible things to Tom. Yes.
That are, and she like says that that's what Nick says in his note, but it's not. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they kept that. That was part of the book.
Yep.
Yeah, so anyway, Tom, and I love the way that he's being played. I agree. I think that they've done a bit of an update, but I think that he's still fantastic. He's very lovable. They do, and I'm getting ahead of myself, kind of gloss over how he ultimately gets sent on his mission for the group. And I'm disappointed in that. This goes back to backstory getting glossed over. And they kind of they change up some stuff when we'll talk about that more, but nonetheless, I love that they brought him in. I think the guy who's playing him is great. I think the way that they're portraying him as a character is great. Yeah.
And I like it. Like you said, I'm sure we'll talk about it a little more later, and that how he becomes such an important character and the changes that were made. At least it sounds like from the book and the 94 version. I'll be curious to see how the 94 version sticks to the book or not, because it's definitely been changed for the 2020 version.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how all of this wraps up. I am not going to watch ahead, though, because it just makes the timeline too confusing for me, and it makes it hard for me to sort all of it out.
Right.
So next week, I'm going to be a good girl and just rewatch episode 4 and not watch anything else, because, like I said, I watched episode 5 last night after I watched episode 3, and I was like, what? What's going on? Who, what, where, when? When did this all happen and why?
Right. I mean, like you said, I have watched episode 5, and I couldn't tell you what takes place in episode 4 or 5, which is which. Like they're completely conflated in my mind because they do not follow the linear fashion of the 94 version. So, yeah.
So kind of getting into rotting potpourri, this is something that happens fairly early on in this episode. We get the Asian guy arriving from Las Vegas, and Larry and Stu rapidly realize that he's been crucified.
Mm-hmm.
And I can honestly tell you that I think the way that we hear about the crucifixions in the book are essentially rumors kind of filtering out of Las Vegas.
Yeah.
They don't ever get someone who shows up in Boulder who's a victim of one of the crucifixions.
Yeah, in the 94 version, same. The closest that you kind of get to that until the very, very end of the series is when the four guys head out on the road. They do come across somebody who is crucified on a billboard, and around his neck is a sign that in needles that's like made out of needles that says drug addict.
Okay, and so we'll talk more about this in upcoming episodes as well. But yeah, Flag is like, if
straight
you,
lace.
yeah, you
Like,
don't drink, you don't drug.
Yeah.
You can have all of the crazy sex you want, but you don't drink and you don't drug.
Yeah, it kind of like I use the wrong terminology. It kind of reminds me of the we're about to watch a documentary on the white power movement, and back in the, I want to say 80s, it was kind of before my time, the straight edge movement.
Right.
Yeah, where you had people who were basically like, I am not going to poison my body because I am the pure race.
Although interestingly, I know some Buddhist punkers, not personally, but through their teachings, who were part of the straight edge movement, who were not part of the white power movement.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have that overlap of I guess you like people in Buddhism who like want to keep their body pure, and then there's also people who screw that up in their mind and who are like, I'm the pure race, so my body should be pure.
Right. Yeah, so anyway, the whole thing about Flag and sex versus drinking and drugging is very interesting, and we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, and that's like I said, it's kept true in the 94 version.
Yeah. So anyway, we don't get the whole dramatic scene of the guy arriving and them realizing he's been crucified. We don't get the dramatic scene toward the end of this episode with Mother Abigail and the council kind of gathering at this guy's bedside. We don't see any of that.
But there is a little bit of that in this version, and in the 94 version, there is a scene where Flag is able to affect Mother Abigail physically. In the 94 version, he like basically visits her on her farm, and she's playing the guitar, and he shows up in her cornfield, and I don't know if it's a vision or a dream or what have you, but he does the whole, like, he squeezes his hand and her hand starts to bleed. So they did kind of keep that whole thing where Flag seems to be able to harm her.
And this character actually says, I have your blood in my hands, or something like something along those lines. So that's interesting. He
said something very similar in 94 too.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So the big thing I remember from Flag's interaction with Mother Abigail on her farm, and I've mentioned this before, is that he sends a horde of weasels after her.
Mm-hmm. And in the 94 movie,
you said it was wolves, right?
Rats.
Rats. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was kind of cool and interesting with the whole character, his deathbed after his crucifixion and after our heroes are gathered around him, was when those crows throw themselves at the window.
Yeah.
That was kind of gruesome and creepy, and in keeping with using crows, wolves, and rats to symbolize Flag.
Yeah, and when he was turning the cards over, when Nick was in his dream at the table in the desert.
Yeah. So did you see the cards?
Yeah, there was a wolf, rat, and
the stone that's on the necklace.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course the face cards, like one of them had their hand over their mouth, and then the other one was missing an eye.
Right. No, I actually thought that was a very cool touch. I appreciated that.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that, like, Stu was like, he was crucified the right way, and not through the palm. And I'm like, okay, none of us who have like seen the like movie Stigmata, like basically any of us who like since like 2002 or whatever, like we've all known that that's not how you crucify somebody. You crucify them through the wrist, because otherwise, it just rips through the hand. And it's like,
nonetheless, you know,
we all know the right way.
Okay,
Although,
so Stu's not the brightest bulb, but he's really a nice guy. And not nice guy TM. He truly is a nice guy.
Right. Maybe that's a bit of weird trivia that, like, only a few of us know, but okay. Did you notice that we caught Baby Can You Dig Your Man in this episode?
Yes, we did. And I thought it was super interesting that we kind of get the feeling that either Joe, the little boy, either has had guitar lessons and he's somewhere pulling this out of his past, or he's kind of got a savant thing going on.
Yeah. So it wasn't in this episode that he showed interest in the piano, was it? Or was that next episode? But he has some sort of musical talent.
Actually, I think it was even episode 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, he's either a musical savant. I agree. He's either a musical savant or he's had some prior teaching.
And we don't entirely know. And I have to tell you that I feel like we never got a ton of Joe's backstory to begin with. Mm-mm. I don't feel like we're going to get much of Joe at all, which is kind of a bummer because he does transition somewhat as a character.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be interested to see if they show more of him in this version or find out if he had a bigger role in the book than he did the 94 version, because I feel like he was like maybe a larger character in the book, and the 94 version just went, okay, here's Joe, this like kid who's been through this traumatic thing, and now like he goes, and then all of a sudden like Mother Abigail sort of like changes him.
He was definitely still a secondary character, and it wasn't Mother Abigail who changed him. It was definitely the interaction with Larry that changed him. Yeah.
Okay.
So I have written down, yay, we meet Kojak and Glenn.
Yay! I
which
swear they use the same dog. Like Kojak looks exactly the same, and I know like golden retrievers or whatever, but
oh, you're talking about from 94?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a golden retriever. Golden retrievers. I love that Glenn starts waxing philosophical about society and about the good and the bad and, you know, how you rebuild society and how, you know, you get 3 people together and all of a sudden, oh God, you've got society. And because he very much is that character in the book.
And he's not in the 94 version. They have a little bit. Yeah, they have a little bit of him and Stu kind of talking about that right before Fran and Harold show up in 94. And like, it's so minimal. And to see Glenn as kind of a younger, hipper dude and like his whole waxing philosophical and his relationship with Stu is, I love that addition in this current update.
Oh, he's definitely the philosopher in the book. So
yeah.
What else do I have? I wrote down the irony of Tom who can't read meeting Nick who can't spell or hear. MOON, and that spells irony.
Oh.
So we don't, the whole Glenn painting Mother Abigail, Glenn painting Franny, that doesn't exist in the book. I don't know if that exists in what you know as source material.
So when we first meet Glenn, Stu happens upon him, and he is painting, but it's nothing of consequence. We don't see him painting any of his dreams or any future events or anything like that. So, no, that is not in the 94 version either.
I don't really have a lot else.
I don't either.
But
like
we
I
now
said,
have talked for, basically twice the length of the episode, so.
Of course. We have to go over a lot more than what is in the episode. We have to go over what's in the book, what's in the version, who the actors are, what we've seen them in.
I did want to say, completely unrelated, that I finally watched Hamilton. It was wonderful. I loved it. And now I've been in this debate in the last 48 hours with friends of mine on Facebook who are like, it's terrible. Hamilton was not an abolitionist. He was not the hero that Lin-Manuel Miranda made him to be. And then my other friends who are very pro-Hamilton are like, Lin-Manuel Miranda is God. And I'm like, you guys, it's art. It's art. And it got us thinking about history, and it got us doing more reading, and that's healthy. It's art.
Yes, absolutely.
So that has nothing to do with The Stand, but Hamilton is amazing. I'm always late to a good party.
There's and I haven't seen it either, but there is a meme out there that's great where it's be like Hamilton, don't miss taking your shot, and it's for the vaccine, of course.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I should have saved it. But so that is all I have. Episode 4, The House of the Dead, will be next week's. Real Housewife of Alaska is doing a documentary called White Noise on the white power movement, and the documentary actually just wrapped up here a few months ago. It's very, very current, so if anybody would like to watch that and listen to the Real Housewives, you are welcome to, but of course we are going to have a very lefty opinion as usual, so
and it's probably going to be fairly sweary.
Yes. Listener discretion is advised.
Right.
But if you want to hear us hear us swear and listen to something not lefty, you can go watch Capes and Lunatics After Dark on Patreon.
I think we might have been a tiny bit lefty, but we weren't like overtly lefty like the Real Housewives are.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to keep politics out of like pornography and things like that, because you are going to have a right or left leaning opinion on the political nature of pornography, misogyny, racism, all of the things that the movie Boogie Nights kind of goes through.
Yeah. Oh God, that movie was so good and so heartbreaking, and it's still so good.
It is. But you can listen to us anywhere on those things. But until then, just remember, take it one dead day at a time. Have a good week, everybody.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.